Next tonight, the dangers of distracted driving and new government warnings about that problem. Ray Suarez has our story.
You should be able to see far enough ahead just by looking over the dash, okay? And
Tanya Bourbonnais is a professional race car driver and performance driving school instructor, taking 16-year-old Maryland high school students through a test course meant to alert them to the dangers of multitasking behind the wheel.
And I want you to text, "Welcome to RFK Stadium," okay?
The students' ability to keep their cars inside the cones is quickly and dramatically diminished by the demands of using a cell phone, or what's commonly referred to as distracted driving. Afterward, the girls each admitted they'd overestimated their driving while texting skills.
I actually did until I tried, and she asked me to text "welcome to the stadium," and all I was texting was numbers. So
actually, I did think I was better before, but I guess not.
Safety officials from Ford Motor Company, which sponsored the event, say the danger is very real. Luis Tijerina is senior technical specialist with Ford.
People speed, people tailgate, people weave in and out of traffic, people try to beat the red. Even with all of that, their research indicates a 23-fold increase in risk for texting.
Conservative estimates say at any given moment about 1 million people are behind the wheel of a moving vehicle and talking on the phone. And of that number, about 1 out of 4 also text. Last year, 6,000 people were killed in accidents linked to distracted driving, and another 500,000 were hurt. Those statistics were cited by officials today, as the U.S. Department of Transportation opened a 2-day summit on the subject in Washington. Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood said the problem had reached alarming proportions.
Every single time you take your eyes off the road or talk on the phone while you're driving, even for just a few seconds, you put your life in danger. And you put other lives in danger also.
7 states and the District of Columbia ban handheld cell phone use. Text messaging is banned in 18 states and the District of Columbia. Both chambers of the United States Congress are now considering tougher laws banning or curtailing driver cell phone use. At today's summit, a woman whose mother was killed by a speeding driver who ran a red light told her story.
The first thing the driver did admit when he got out of the car is that he was talking on a cell phone. He was not texting. He was not dialing. He was not looking for his phone. He was having a conversation. This conversation was less than a minute long. He was driving for less than a quarter of a mile. The accident happened at 4:43 p.m., and at 7:05 p.m., my mother was pronounced dead.
Hi, Jay.
Concern is also growing internationally. In England, this government-produced public service announcement has gotten plenty of attention for its graphic portrayal of the dangers of texting. Back in this country, U.S. automakers have also weighed in, urging wider use of hands-free devices. Some safety experts insist hands-free units do little to improve safety. Ford's safety director, Jim Vondale, says the automaker favors a total ban on texting, but worries that eliminating all cell phone use behind the wheel is not realistic.
In states that have passed bans on handheld cell phones, for example, initially there was compliance, but then as time went on, people started going back to their old behavior. And so our polling results suggested, and we think it's logical, that in order to help support these bans, we should offer some sort of safer alternative to people.
The automaker is promoting a line of hands-free devices in its newer models, saying a combination of new laws and new technology is the key. But driving instructor Tanya Bourbonnais says laws in those cities with quick and severe penalties have sharply reduced abuse of cell phone by drivers.
I live in Montreal, and the use of handheld cell phones are banned already. Your car will pretty much get confiscated if they catch you. They gave us a few months grace period where you'd get warnings, and then it's a pretty strict policy now that if you've had one warning that you are either going to lose your privilege of driving or pay a heavy fine or get your car confiscated.
I spoke with Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood about the government's concerns this afternoon. Well, this morning during your talk, you talked about distracted driving being an epidemic and a menace to society. Those are pretty unequivocal terms for something that millions of Americans do regularly and probably think they've got under control.
Texting while driving is a menace, it's out of control, and it's at epidemic proportions in America. There's just no other way to put it. And if the folks that are watching this interview would have had the opportunity to listen to the family members of those who lost loved ones because somebody was texting while driving, it will break your heart.
Well, it sounds like you're talking with a sense of urgency. But when we had a lot of statistics and we knew exactly what was wrong with driving without a safety belt, driving while impaired by alcohol, didn't it take a long time before the culture changed in a way that changed the way people looked at driving this way?
Well, the two examples that you give are the ones that I also use. 0.08 now is the national standard, and when anyone sees it, they know what it means. They know that it means that if you're over 0.08, you're going to be arrested, and you're going to lose your driving privileges, and you may go to jail. And people also know that if they don't have their seatbelt on, they're likely, if they're in an accident, to have an injury or maybe a loss of life. So those two programs have worked. And we're going to take that model and replicate it for the idea that while you're driving and texting, it's a huge distraction that can cause injury and death.
This morning during your address, you said you can't legislate behavior. But the victims that you also mentioned, the people who lost loved ones to distracted driving, called for, and some of your experts called for, tough legislation to ban the use of cell phones and things that take your eyes off the road inside the car. Now, you mentioned there aren't enough cops, but right now we've got kind of a patchwork of laws.
Well, we know that national legislation does work. We know that it worked with 0.08, and we know that it worked with Click It or Ticket, which required people to wear seatbelts. And we're going to work with Congress. We have 4 senators coming to this conference, and we're going to work with them and any member of Congress who wants to help us. We'll define the problem. We'll know what the problem is when we leave this hotel, but we need to work with Congress on what is the solution.
You need the car companies and the insurance companies too, right?
The car companies and the insurance companies are on board. We've talked to them. They know this is a serious issue, and particularly the insurance companies. They know the huge cost of injuries and death that are caused by driving while texting. And we won't have any trouble getting the insurance companies and the car manufacturers on board on this. They know this is in their best interests also.
Administration officials are expected to announce specific new steps the government will take against dangerous cell phone use at the close of the summit tomorrow.
We've collected stories about the various state laws prohibiting texting and talking on cell phones while driving, and those reports come from our PBS colleagues. You can find them on our website, newshour.pbs.org.